Well, hello again, my friends, and welcome back. Or I should say, what up, peeps? That was going to be my new intro, since it's the one I've been using forever. So what up, peeps? How's it going? How's everyone doing on this fine, beautiful day? Well, it's the day before Thanksgiving, 2021. It's also my birthday tomorrow. Once every 7 years or so, on average, my birthday falls on Thanksgiving. Since Thanksgiving's always on a Thursday, my birthday floats on the 25th. And so, if there's one birthday gift that I could ask from all of you, the viewers, it would be give somebody a break in your personal life. In other words, if you're having a gathering tomorrow, let something go. Just have a moment where perhaps you're going to argue with somebody or debate something and realize that many of the frustrations we have right now are shared. And I feel like we're living in a time right now where the division is so high that it could easily boil over, but it could easily also just be a stepping stone, if you will. It's always during times of chaos where we think the world's ending. In fact, all through history, every century turning, it was always the new apocalypse. The new, by the apocalypse by definition means an unveiling, actually. And there are many in that regard. As the years go on, we learn new things. The centuries go on, new science, new technology. Things are obviously exponentially getting faster right now. But not to get too far off topic, my main point here that I want to make is I had an epiphany earlier, and it had to do with why people are so divided right now. Because it fascinates me that it's not just over one or two things, but everything. The rational person, the rational thinker right now, is the outcast. And it took me back to all the research I did several years ago on ancient philosophy. All the way back from the days of, Socrates, Descartes, all the way up to Locke, and some of the modern, like Spinoza, and every time I hear a different philosophy, it resonates with a little bit with me, but a little bit not. And I use this as an example because philosophers, some people really latch onto a particular philosopher and say, I prefer this philosophy. Well, here's what I've learned in all of my almost 46 years at tomorrow at 8:03 a.m. All of my almost 46 years of living on this planet. The most valuable lessons that I've learned. But the epiphany first is that independence is cherished in times of peace. In other words, during times of peace, relaxation, and comfort, where you feel protected, you don't feel threatened, society can let go and what I would say expand during times of peace because, I know a person may think, well, expansion happens in times of war when they conquer. That's not expanding. That's just moving people from one place to another. Expansion, true expansion, is when a society has time to breathe. You may not know that the word inspire, to be inspire means to breathe in. And when you have time to breathe and you can take a deep breath, you have time to create, to design, to write music, to create art, to paint the Sistine Chapel, whatever it may be. But here's where it gets interesting. During times of chaos, the exact opposite happens. Instead of expanding, we contract. We pull back in within ourselves. The interesting irony here is that it is during times of peace when we paint and create music and art, songs, that these songs are almost always about the times of chaos. So we live through these ages of chaos, then we write all this music and create all this art about these times of chaos in hopes that we can overcome that. Historically, it's pretty fascinating. The study of history, my limited understanding of history from what I've read and studied and listened to, as many hours of lectures about ancient philosophers as I could, and learning about the Romans. I mean, there's so much unlimited knowledge that we are really limited on how much we can find. And then we're at the mercy of what we're told. So we have to kind of sort through it on our own too. But this idea that when we are in a fight or flight syndrome, a fight or flight state, or fight, flight, or freeze rather, like we are right now, then people contract. They pull back these feelings of comfort and allowing themselves to be exposed before their peers, if you will. I sometimes think about like acid trips or mushroom trips I've taken with groups of people where there's like 7, 8 or more people at a festival, after a concert, at a campground, wherever it may be, all laying back in beanbag chairs and lawn chairs in the dark, listening to music and talking about life. And these conversations, they get really, really deep. And people open up to shit that they would never talk about in their daily life. But you're not going to get these same mind-expanding discussions when you're flustered and you're out in the middle of the city doing something with people, even if you're tripping. Because it's the ability to feel comfortable, to feel protected and safe. People don't feel safe right now. And that's a big problem. It's causing a lot of the problems we have. And I think what's contributing to that, a lot more than we're giving credit to, is the fact that a lot of the hopes and dreams and ideas that a lot of the younger generation have had, and my generation, and the older generation, about retirement, whatever it might be, those hopes and dreams have been dashed and broken because of a system that is unforgiving, that doesn't care about you. And then we have these arguments about whether, well, we need socialism to protect each other, and others who say, no, we need, full-on capitalism, take care of your own shit. And in between, most of us are somewhere in the middle, saying, we understand that a society needs to help one another, but also you can't be forced and coerced into that by law. Where do we draw the line? So what we enter is a mass psychosis. And I believe that's what we're in right now. I'm using the human experience to explain how, in the bigger picture, a personal psychosis is very similar to a mass psychosis. Something happens that triggers your mind to kind of forget who it is, forget who you are, forget reality. And you might think the other reality is just as real as the one we had before. Unless you have someone to guide you through that, a shepherd, you will not recover, or you might not recover, rather. And I've seen it firsthand with individuals, and I'm definitely seeing it in a society right now. Yeah, so anyway, a lot of thoughts on my mind. Before I finish this, I'd like to read you a poem, which will probably end up being over half the video because it's kind of long. I wrote this today. It's not a poem, I should say. It's rather a writing. Sometimes I get myself across better in writing than I do in speaking. So it starts with a short poem. So I hope you enjoy it. Tell me what I need. Give me what you think is best. Got no time to do the thinking, barely time to even rest. My mind is always running, and my schedule will not allow for any time for listening, for I'm too busy talking now. Always trust your intuition, it seldom lets us down. Though time to time we realize in some way we're always a clown. Breach your inner sanctum, let the skepticism flow. In the age of technology, it's anybody's show. And then it goes on to the writing that I made this morning. Standing by what you really think is harder than it may appear at first. How strong does one have to be in order to stick to their principles in everything they do? We are so easily swayed by the group that we sometimes find ourselves unsure whether we really know what we know. If one speaks against if one speaks against what the current paradigm might claim, in any situation, he is an outsider, or misinformed. If it does not agree with the status quo, he becomes a pariah. Are you willing to become that person? Because if you are always honest with yourself, you will never be in complete agreement with any others. It is often safer to just concede than to agree to disagree. For thinking and using rational methods to deduce what is real is often not as comfortable as believing what we think others want us to believe, or what we are told. After all, others know better than we do, right? Right? Well, in many cases, this turns out to be true. Willful ignorance and blindness to the truth are par for the course to many modern happy humans. Less questions means less confusion, and somehow we decide that our confusion is not worth understanding. We have sold out our education to others. Why stir the pot? Don't be a lone wolf. Pick a side. Find a team. Make sure that you oppose another team strongly. After all, life is about proving your team is better than the other side, right? Not for us. Not for us. So how does it feel to be a referee? Well, I'll tell you how it feels. Lonely. Rational thought is not celebrated in the same way as compliance to others' whims. It has been said that there is strength in numbers, but if the numbers don't understand the game, nobody wins. And since people want their opinions supported by others, it is tempting to give in and flow with the masses. Because it appears that truth has become a contest rather than an understanding. A floating goal that only serves to keep the game going, to prove some point or say, "I told you so." Truth is not political. Truth is not biased. Truth is not an opinion. Truth is not a friend or foe. Truth is what happens while people are debating what truth is. And when the truth about a situation cannot be accurately deduced, we do exactly what we have always done. We fill in the blanks. And when new information comes that conflicts with any of those blanks, rather than changing our position, we dig in deeper and make excuses as to why the facts are wrong. But among the sheep, there is always a shepherd. The shepherd's job is to protect the flock from wolves or harsh weather. The flock has no understanding of his role in their safety, as they are ignorant of the dangers abound until they are right in front of them. The shepherd does not expect gratitude from those he oversees. They see him come and go, but are unaware of his role in keeping things in order. If anything, he is a hindrance to their personal freedom. To choose to be a shepherd means one does not pretend the wolves don't exist. He does not ignore the broken fence or the threat to his flock. He doesn't expect credit for his efforts, for he reaps the rewards of his labor, and the sheep realize none of it. He has interest only to live in his own way, within his own boundaries. What is the truth of the sheep, the shepherd, the wolf, the forest? Choosing to see through the delusions of our society can be a lonely path. Finding the truth should not be about fame or fortune. It should not be about proving a point or making a profit. It should never be used as a weapon against people, as eventually all lies are exposed as such. But for the ignorance, that which we cannot determine to be true or false, we are left to our own devices. Perhaps rather than making assumptions about that which we do not know or listening to someone else's version of reality, we should spend more time thinking about what really matters. For all the talking heads out there telling us what is true, there is often very little evidence for claims made. but the people choose to believe it because it gives them a feeling of solidarity, even if that is a mere facade. Friendships and relationships are lost over disagreements on politics, religion, and now science and health. We have lost sight of what matters. But in all this chaos, a new dawn is upon us. And those of us who are willing to stay afloat instead of hanging onto the shoreline will have a much better chance at seeing new sights. Groupthink is comfortable for people, but it always ends the same way, with division. Whether in science, biology, philosophy, or mathematics, if you are unwilling or unable to look at things as they truly are, you will spend your life defending your position. And for those of us and those of you who do decide to think for yourselves, you will be an outcast. You may be despised by many, and will definitely be hated by some. You will be called a fence sitter, or a conspiracy theorist, or a moron, depending on who you are talking to and what they are trying to convince you of. You will be called a hypocrite if you change your mind with new information, and that is okay. Most people have a hard time with change, and those who embrace it are always misunderstood, especially by their former peers. Life is change. This is a given. But we do not celebrate those changes that take place within our own society. We are suspicious and afraid of the unknown. We huddle in groups for comfort and prefer an echo chamber to the dark, long, silent hallways of rational thought. But the longer you spend in those halls, the more voices you will hear around you. You find that you aren't alone. You find that there are many others just like you, who are not out to agree or disagree, but to get to the bottom of things, to get to the truth, however painful it may seem. Because there is nothing more painful in my experience than a life of ignorance and allowing others to think for us. Nothing great ever came from following the worn path. Exploration is risky, but the views are immaculate. Wander off the trail. Hit up the darkest hallways. You never know what you might find, and the worst that can happen is that others may not agree with you. That's their problem, not yours. You will find, in time, that those who are left around you, after all the nonsense that's been shoved aside and all the dust has settled, are the ones who are of the highest caliber to be friends, family, or associates. Don't compromise your integrity to impress others, or to agree with that which you know to be wrong, because that is a weakness. We must always be honest and forthcoming with what we think to be true, even if we are wrong. And when we are, we need to admit as much. We had better be ready to change our position when new information becomes available. And that, my friends, is the learning process. It takes a lifetime of self-analysis to even begin to scratch the surface of who we really are. So we better start learning to be true to ourselves. It's never too late. Let go of the bias. See things as they are. It is not easy. Being self-aware is the job of the shepherd, and he expects nothing in return other than to lead an honest life, knowing he did his best not to lie to himself or others, and he found comfort in his inner sanctum rather than the collective opinions of others. A true free thinker. Be well, my friends, and thanks for coming along. I appreciate you all. I hope you enjoyed. And I will talk to you all perhaps tomorrow on my birthday. Maybe I'll make a birthday video. Since it's my birthday, I can get away with making a video on Thanksgiving even. I have one scheduled for tomorrow anyway, which I think you might enjoy, but maybe you won't, and that's the beauty. I don't care, but I do. I'm honest with myself, but I'm also learning about myself, my insecurities, my weaknesses, and building on that to make a better person, a better man, if you will. And I just want to share that with others and hope that others can become shepherds rather than wolves or sheep. But if you choose to be a sheep or a wolf, that's your prerogative. I'm only here to lend my own personal spice to that dish of life. Peace out. Later, peeps.